Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend.
Arms with the flick, Johnson with the turn, Johnson with the goal, and the game turns on its head.
Still trying to turn off for McAlliskey, back on to Rob Edwards! What a goal for Rob Edwards!
What a goal, Aaron Moy! An absolute thunderbolt delivered all the way from Australia! Played down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League! De Plata's forward, De Plata's got the better... Yes! And Laurent De Plata scores! Laurent De Plata scores!
It's in the box, it's in there! It's in there! It's there! It's on the board! It's in there! The King of Huddersfield!
Hello and welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance preview show, The Drive-In. Press the button on your sunglasses department, pull them out, give the lens a quick little wipe, slide them on, stick some Don Henley on the radio, and let's get into Huddersfield Town versus Crawley. Killer, as always, is with me, and I think it would be remiss, Killer, if we didn't focus mostly on Jon Worthington's first press conference in his second spell as caretaker manager. But let's get going, but not before I mention that we're on Patreon, www.takesthatchance.com. Whether you want to use the app or not, pay for our dulcet tones or not, we'd appreciate you guys just signing up to the Patreon. It's just good for notifications, if nothing else. There's all sorts of little bits and pieces on there that we can use to get you lot going. And we'd also be doing a competition soon enough to give away a free membership if we get another 50 or so sign-ups, and we'll do that. So what are you waiting for? Get signed up. Okay. Killer, this will be the second ever match between Crawley and Huddersfield Town. The first game was back in November, ending 2-2. We did the players and history on the drive-in episode number 8, so there's not much point in going over old ground. Killer, but tell us, how have the creepy Crawleys got on since then? And is it enough to give Town arachnophobia that'll stop them getting over their oikophobia?
Do you know what, Matt? It's another one that I don't want to get into too much because I'll feel too positive after doing it. It's another team coming to Town that look pretty awful on paper and being 6 points away now from the survival zone. They're not looking great for the end of the season. They're in 22nd at the moment, 6 points off Peterborough, who are the only kind of saving grace that they might be able to catch up, because then there's another jump up to 41 points if they're trying to get above that to stay in League One. But they started the season all right, first few games okay, third, fourth in the league. Unexpected, but they had easy fixtures, 2-3 games in, of course. And then everything went as most people expected, considering they turned over, I think, 17 first-team players in the summer after being promoted from League Two. They had a change of manager, he jumped ship, and in came Rob Elliott from Gateshead, who did really well there. I think he'd won the FA Trophy and stuff previously, and was a bit of a coup to get him there. But from then, they've struggled, and they've not been out of the relegation zone since the week we beat Charlton at home, if you remember, which feels like a long, long time ago. They've taken 5 wins out of the last 35 games away from home form, 24th in the league. They scored fewer goals than most other teams and conceded more than anybody else, especially when they play away from home, Matt. So for Town, on paper, this looks like one that maybe even we have a decent chance of not messing up.
Never rule out Charity FC. That's what I always say, mate. Never rule out the goodwill, nature, and charity of Huddersfield Town. But we'll have a look further into this. Okay. Let's hear from a Crawley fan. This is an interview with Reuben from the Crawley podcast, SimplyReds, about how they've got on since we last met. Hi, Reuben. I hope you're well. Thanks for joining us again on the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. It's been a little while since Huddersfield and Crawley met for the first time in the league. It was a 2-2 draw. So how have you guys been getting on since, and how's your form been like since then?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I mean, it's been a very disappointing season for us. We have not found any form, really. Even if we are able to just string a couple of wins together, they never really fluctuate into anything more than that. So yeah, Crawley fans on the whole have been really, really disappointed. I mean, we knew we were going to struggle this season, but I don't think people expected it to be this bad.
Your owners are quite controversial from the outside looking in, but they've obviously got a promotion under their belt. So how have they actually been taken in by the Crawley fan base, especially with the basis of them being involved in cryptocurrency?
I mean, when they first came in, they're very hit and miss, very Marmite. I think people are either really excited or were dreading them. I think them getting promotion with us has probably masked a lot of their issues that have been happening on and off the pitch. I mean, I think just this season, we got rid of most of our players, leaving maybe one or two from our promotion winning season, because they go on the fact that stats is what they need to do. But what stats doesn't really take into account is, whilst it takes into account individual performances, it doesn't take into account the team mentality, which is what you need if you are wanting to stay up in a league where you're the underdogs.
Okay, so you're currently 9 points from safety at the minute. How do you feel about your chances of clawing that back and staying in the league?
Oh, the chances of us staying up are pretty slim. I mean, it would be a miracle if we are able to stay up. I think whilst we've had some semi-good performances recently, at this stage, performances doesn't matter. All that matters is you put in the ball into the back of the net more times than the opposition. And so, yeah, I think Crawley fans were expecting us to be relegated, what everyone was. Even if we're in League 2 at the moment, we'd be in favourites to be relegated. So hopefully we're able to build onto next season, over the next few games, perhaps playing some of our younger players, and really push on into a strong League 2 season next season.
So Huddersfield have just sacked Michael Duff. What have you made of that decision as a fan of another club in League One?
I mean, I was quite surprised actually when they sacked him. I think whether they're wanting to have a bit of, because of the drop in form, whether they're wanting to have a bit of a managerial push, like what often happens when people used to get a new manager. But let's just hope they don't start that win streak when we go to theirs.
Okay, so on to the match. How do you guys line up? What's your starting 11 likely to be? What system do you play and style? And how do you think you're going to come at Huddersfield on the day?
So we've previously played 3-5-1-1 with Barker, Malarkey and Radcliffe being our defenders. Katana, Kamara, Fraser, Anton, Adeyemo in the mid, with Kamari Doyle and Will Swan kind of leading the line, although Doyle perhaps dropping a bit deeper. And I should imagine we'll stick with probably a similar squad. There might be a couple of changes, with potentially Max Anderson coming out of the squad, or even and perhaps bringing in Hepburn Murphy or Adeyemo also potentially dropping. But yeah, I think it's all a bit of it will be a surprise in the day as to how we actually line up, because a lot of our squad has been changing over the past few games.
And finally, mate, give us a prediction for the score.
I mean, I'm hopeful for a 2-0 win, but I'm probably going to be heading up to Huddersfield with anything better than a 5-0 loss. Will be a benefit for us. But we've got to cheer on the boys for the 90 minutes, and let's hope we can have some positives towards the end of the season.
Right, Killer, let's get on to the press conference. Jon Worthington seemed quite excited, doesn't he? There's such a polar opposite from Jon Worthington 12 months ago to Jon Worthington now, isn't there? 12 months ago, he was like, oh, I'm just doing this for a few weeks, not my job kind of thing. And now he's speaking about opportunity, about how excited he is to be there. And he seems to just have a completely different viewpoint to it. Again, he's going in with no pressure. He's saying the same sort of things in terms of attacking, letting shackles off, etc., etc. But he just feels a little bit different, like maybe he fancies this one.
He sounds like he's all in to me. Catherine Anna, to be fair to her, she asked him once if he's interested in the job, and Worthy didn't say no, and she threw it back at him saying, well, that sounds like a yes, and it did to me watching it. I think Worthington fancies it, but then on paper, Matt, it's a great job, isn't it? There's not many opportunities to join a team that spends money like we do in this division, and for Worthy, he's not coached before professionally, so it's hard to get opportunities like what he could get at Town. And these, like you say, 10 games, we're outside the playoffs at the moment. Things are looking pretty awful. If we don't make it, he can go back to his decent little job as the head of the academy that's obviously expanding by the week at the moment. If it all goes right, he can take over his cherished club that he still comes to watch every weekend with his family. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for Johnny to get it, to have a good go at trying to instill what he wants to see in town, because when he came in last time, Matt, he changed the system entirely from day one, and you could see it. And I love listening to it this time, Matt. We're going to press high is basically what he said without saying that too much. But he said the strikers are going to work winning the ball back at the right end of the field. And that couldn't make me more excited for Saturday. It's amazing what a few days can do, isn't it, Matt? After Duff goes and we're not really quite ready for it, for now Worthington coming in, one press conference, says what most of us kind of understand in the striking situation is the biggest issue, and we'll play looking to play forward progressively. Oh, Matt, I couldn't be more excited.
I've said the same sort of thing, didn't he, at the start of the season? And everything fell to bits through injury. But there were little things in there that he was talking about, especially he made point of talking about recovery sessions first and foremost, didn't he? And then he was talking about periodization as well. And for those people that don't know what periodization is, Killer, you can explain it to them. No, I'm joking. It's basically how you organize your fitness over a length of time, isn't it? And you can not peak at certain points and then take people out to make sure they're always at optimum capacity, etc. There's always, I think looking at the opportunity he's got and the opportunity he mentions, he might fall quite lucky in some ways as well, mate, because we've got the international break coming up. We've got Crawley, who you say are 24th in terms of most things, at the, especially their away form. If he can navigate that win against Crawley, he then gets time with them on the pitch, and then he gets Kasumu back, he gets Balka back, and then all of a sudden the team starts to look a little bit different in its makeup. And then he's probably got more tools at his disposal maybe than what Michael Duff had over the last, couple of months. And so the opportunity is there, isn't it? He just sort of needs to circumvent this first match against Crawley. And to be honest, we'll have a look at the team shortly, but he should do, in theory. He should be able to. I mean, if he gets off to a defeat against Crawley, then, the next 9 games probably won't matter, will they? But there's other things, and he mentions a little bit about Joe Taylor and about trying to start Joe Taylor as soon as possible as well. So that there is that in there as well. So it's going to be interesting, mate, isn't it? How Jon Worthington will line up Huddersfield Town. But anything else sort of stick out to you really about his first press conference? It was only 15 minutes, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I was down at the sponsors event as well on Tuesday. Obviously, Duff was removed shortly before that, and my father-in-law sponsors Balka, so we were down talking to a few of the first-team players that were there, and even they seem pretty excited, Matt. I think bringing an attacking style of football, and with Worthy, it's not just words, because we've seen him do it before, and it was a little bit gung-ho. To be fair to him, he did say it'll be a bit of a roller coaster to strap in today, didn't he? And that he understands when we do go gung-ho, there's issues at the back, so we're not expecting clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet. But the players, they kept speaking about the attacking thing that they're working on in training, and that it's quite a change. So I think the players are quite excited as well. So it's not only an opportunity there, Matt, for Worthy with an easy-ish fixture on paper this weekend, and then 2 weeks as like a mini preseason break to get him playing his way. I think he's also going to have a motivated group of lads that are knowing that they can attack, because everybody wants to attack. Every footballer wants to enjoy going forward with the ball, and Worthy will enable the lads to do that.
Worthy the enabler. That sounds like his name, doesn't it? Going forward. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite nervous about it because I like Jon Worthington. I think Jon Worthington's a massive. I want to go Mel Booth on you. Massive fillip to Huddersfield Town. I think having somebody like him around is just an asset. Is Worthy. He's like the new Jerry Murphy, effectively, isn't he? So I'm quite nervous if he does do well and gets the job, because the rate that we're going through managers would mean that you would have to, as Dave Hartrick always says to me, it's like you have to shoot Bambi kind of thing, and that's a position I don't want to get in with Huddersfield Town, but hopefully it never gets to that stage. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can bring, and people remember that he took Darren Moore's team and made them more exciting straight away. I think the last game was a bit tough, wasn't it, against Hull? But Hull were going for the playoffs as well, and we got a last-minute equaliser in that game before conceding in like the 97th minute or something. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting, isn't it? So hopefully that's it. I think Kevin Russell being the assistant manager maybe indicates that Matt Cartwright is not going anywhere anytime soon, because Kevin Russell, he's basically Matt Cartwright's man, isn't he? He's the eyes and ears, if you like, in the dressing room. Who I'm sure Jon Worthington reports back similar, but he's like his old Stoke connection, played with him at Wrexham, etc. There's a link there, isn't there? Historical link. So moving on, mate. I think we should get the old tactics board out, do you reckon? And we'll have a goose at how we think Jon Worthington will line up, because when we've looked at Worthy his lineups in the past, Darren Moore started with a 3. He pretty much played a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, didn't he? Whereas Worthy kind of flitted between 3-4-3, 4-3-3 quite quickly. But let's have a quick at how we think he'll line up. Right, to the tactics board we see. So what we're going to have a look at here. So Huddersfield Town, let's have a look at Crawley. Crawley have been playing that 3-4-3 shape for quite a little while, haven't they? This 3-4-3. Or they've been kind of going 3-5-1-1 recently as well, haven't they? So they've been trying to pack the midfield. Crawley, they have the controversial owners, don't they? In Wagme, don't they? The David Wagme, who have they're very much cryptocurrency based, and that everyone knows how volatile that is. But they've gone down a very much a Moneyball route, haven't they? They pick out people from non-league and all over the place based on data and statistics a lot deeper than what most people do, and it's worked for them. They had Scott Lindsay as the manager initially, who did really well with him and played some really good football last season. And he went to MK Dons, and he's just unfortunately lost his job at MK Dons. But like you say, they've got Rob Elliott and the ex-Newcastle Charlton goalkeeper, haven't they? And they're looking to carry on in very much the same way. They do play this back three. So at the minute they've got Wallacott tends to play in goal. Jojo Wallacott, 28 years old, a Bristolian. Feely and Conroy and Radcliffe tend to be the back three. Ben Radcliffe, quite a young defender who's played at Gateshead as well. So there's the Rob Elliott link coming through. He's an interesting one. The central midfield, the central defender is always the important one, isn't it? And Dion Conroy, who's he's 29 and he's been around for a little while. Ex sort of Chelsea youth player, ex Chelsea Fulham youth player, played a lot of games for Swindon. And he's been at Crawley for a couple of years, so he's their sort of rock at the back, if you like. He's the one that it's kind of built around. And midfield, they've got Katima, who plays right wing back, Adeyemos left wing back, Anderson, Barker, Tyrese John Jules, who many people might remember from his little loan spell at Blackpool, played against us before, former Arsenal youth player, and they've been playing a youngster called Kamari Doyle just behind as well, who's come in. He's got a couple of goals and assists as well this season, so he's doing things quite. Rushian Hepburn Murphy, who scored against us in the first game, I think has been missing recently through suspension as well. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in, but if he is, he's an option for them as well. So there's a number of different players. You watched them, didn't you, against Charlton? You tweeted it that you were doing your bit for the I think young Swan, isn't it, the striker? So you were watching your bit. How did this strike you as they've got Panucci Kamara, who can play in midfield, and he was excellent at Plymouth a couple of years ago. Really exciting, attacking Patrick Vieira style midfielder, and he's just sort of fallen off a little bit. And but he got one against Reading a couple of weeks ago. But what did you make of them when you watched them? I think I watched them for about 2 minutes, but you watched them for a little bit longer, didn't you? What did you make of Crawley and how they line up? And they do try and play football as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do, to be fair, but it's probably not to the benefit that they do play that way. But they've got very other little option. I also listen to, honestly, I'm very professional, Matt, when it comes to the driving. No question me on this. I've watched Rob Lee's post-match press conferences from the last few games and his pre-match ones as well. And he talks very similarly to what you'd expect a Town coach to speak of recently, in that he's worried that the Crawley boys, they don't have the physicality required to succeed at League One level. So they have to try and find a different way. So they do play a possession-based style of football, but watching them the other night against Charlton, they did okay. They were pretty open at the back once falling 1-0 behind, but they kind of have to do. You have to play like that. We understand that. But they played a bit like us, where it's a bit around the back and to the sides and down the wing, but they're not very much in the middle. All the gameplay came down the left-hand side with John Jules, as you mentioned previously. He came on, and Adiemo, and they worked pretty nicely down there, but crossed it in, and they had no one really in there as a threat. They've got a couple of lads back, I think. I can't remember. I think there are 2 guys coming back for this game. In Will Swan will probably start though as well, but Tola Shawumi might be in as well, depending on what the selections are for Elliot. But they've got a little bit more physicality compared to what they had against Charlton. But they're gonna be perfect for Town in that they also aren't a very big team. So Town won't get out-muscled and out-manoeuvred by them, which is a very rare thing, isn't it? For us this year, they also like to play football, and they like to play at the back. So it really is a game here where it's going to come down to our strikers and how fast they can press, I think.
So looking at the Town teams, we think Town will go 4-3-3 based on what Worthy's done before, and just looking at the team. So Lee Nichols will play in goal, won't he? I think that'll be a given. Defense is such a difficult way to pick it, but the way I think he'll go with a really attack-minded team. So I think the fullbacks will be Sorensen and Ruskin, really sort of attack-minded, and I think that will be sort of the way that the attacking impetus will come from. I think the in terms of 4-3-3, the wide attackers will be slightly narrow, so and that'll allow the fullbacks to get really wide at this side. And because the fullbacks are going to get really wide, really high where possible, the centre backs may split, and then the defensive midfielder will probably come back in to make that 3. Do you know, like we've seen before under Carlos Corberán? Yeah. I'd be surprised if that didn't happen, especially given that the 2 centre backs will probably be along the lines of Brodie Spencer and Josh Ruffles. Neither are centre backs. I don't think Ollie Turton will play in there particularly, so I think it might be Spencer and Ruffles right-sided and left-sided, and therefore I think Johnny Hogg will start and be the number 6 that maybe drops in between them to help them out at times and be that experienced player just to talk them through things, which leaves a midfield in here of he'll want a ball player, so I think Evans and Hodge will be the 2 that play there. I'm sorry to say that for I know you're a big fan of Wilesy, aren't you? But I think he'll probably come from the bench on this one like he has been doing recently. So I think it'll be Hodge, Evans, Hogg, who will drop in. I think he might start Taylor, you know, just the way he was talking. I'd be surprised if he did, and I'd be surprised if he wouldn't as well, if you know what I mean. Chirua will play, I think, on the left, and Callum Marshall will come in from the right, and that's the way I think the team will line up. Have you got any advances on how you think it might be?
No, I think Taylor will start, and I've got a feeling somebody else will probably turn up from being injured, or he could make a change between Chapman and Nichols. And now this is just a guess, but Worthington, last time he came in, if Danny Ward from the dead, maybe he turns up. But with the way Worthington went about it last time, remember he likes bringing in people from the outskirts. It's a bit of a statement thing with a new manager, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we saw on Saturday. I'm expecting just a wild card at some point, and maybe it is Taylor. I'm looking forward to. I really am looking forward to seeing Taylor to see what he can really offer, because I don't feel like he's had an opportunity yet, and he's only played bit parts here, there, and everywhere. And he doesn't look like an impact kind of striker to me, Matt, where he's going to come on for 10, 15 minutes and do the business. It's a bit more of now he's not a finisher like Jordan Rhodes. I'm not saying that, but that kind of where you start him and you play him 90 minutes and he'll get a chance at some point and score, rather than you chuck him on for 15 minutes and he's a bit quick so he can get something from nothing. I'm really interested to seeing Taylor, and especially like you say, Matt, 2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks break after this. For a striker, for a new number 9 to get a goal in this game and then to work on new systems for 2 weeks is ideal. It's absolutely perfect. So I think you've got to start him if you can, to try and get him back in good form and have a nice positive break afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what they'll go for. I'll be surprised if it's not. I just look at the shape of a midfield in the 3. I just think he'll have one sitting, which I think will end up being Kasumu when he's back fit, to be the energetic one who breaks play up in front of the back 4, and then to allow the others. Just the way he's talking about attacking, I can see that split midfield, and we know that split midfield hasn't really worked much this season. But I imagine if he puts Hodge in there, Hodge and Hogg will kind of round a little bit more, and it will be Evans who moves forward to support more so than what Hodge does. And that kind of gives you that 4-4-1-1 kind of shape at times when you need it as well. So I presume that that's the way they'll go. And I think that's the way we think that both teams will line up. So I think the next thing to discuss, mate, is how we see the basically the scoreline going.
I'm positive, Matt. I'm all in. I'm all in on Worthy. I think he's going to run away with these last 10 games and be a very positive end to a season that's not been great up until now. I think we aren't going to. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet at all. But we'll have a different kind of resilience, I think. I'm going 3-1 Town on this one. Taylor will score. Dion Charles will score, Matt, and so will Callum Marshall. That's the dream day, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-1. I think Town will go 2-0 up. Crawley will pull one back, and then we'll sort of nervily hang on towards the end. Who scores? I'm going to go with Evans and Taylor, I think, in this one. So I'm going to go 2-1. So how do our Patreon community see this game going is the next question. So if you're a member of our Patreon or our TTC squad, we do throw this out and get you guys involved. Mark Harrison says Town 3, Crawley 1. He says Taylor, Marshall and Evans for Town. Social media demands a 5-year contract for Worthy. Neil K says hoping for 4-0 like the Wednesday match, but perhaps I'm in Cloud Cuckoo land. Will Shaw says Worthy will have an impact, but we're still defensively light and without much in midfield. 2-0. Jack says he's going for a 2-1 Huddersfield and a great attacking performance. However, our injuries at centre-back will cost us a goal. Then again, I think I've gotten every prediction wrong this season. Gary Wilkinson says 3-1 Town on the front foot. I'm sure we'll get a Worthy bounce. Be interested to see how the players perform in this match and for the rest of the season under a new, if only interim manager. Jack says 2-0 Town in injuries. And then Joan Parker says, I think it'll be a draw. We'll score first, and then Crawley will pull one back in injury time. Controversial. Thanks for those guys who've chipped in, and thanks for continuing to sponsor us, effectively sponsor us by being a Patreon member. So interesting how we think that'll go. Let's have a look around the ground as well, Killer, because Town, I think one thing that we mentioned, we remember when we did the Bolton podcast and we talked about new manager bounce, didn't we? And new manager bounce doesn't exist in Huddersfield. It just doesn't exist. I think it was like I think it was like over the last 5 or 6 years, we averaged 0.3 points after we'd sacked a manager, something 0.3, which is pathetic. Yeah. And then teams against us averaged about 2.6, and then Bolton even nudged that up, didn't they, to like 2.7. So pretty much Charity FC. If you've sacked your manager, then you're guaranteed to beat us. If we sack a manager, we're guaranteed not to. But I do think we'll book that trend and win this game. But that is always in the back of my mind, is that one. So we'll have a look at the fixtures for League One. There's a lot of European matches going on at the minute, and also it's Bromley 1, Walsall 0. I mean, Bradford are getting promoted, and it's absolutely annoying, isn't it? No games on Friday, so start on Saturday in League One. We get Bolton Wanderers versus Stockport. Do you know, I fancy that to be a playoff game. You know, it's got playoff game written all over it. Yeah,
it does.
I think it'll be a draw as well. A little sneaky draw in there. Stockport are quite decent. Cambridge versus Peterborough, another little derby going on. It's a bit of a derby weekend, isn't it? I think Rangers are playing Celtic, aren't they? And there's a few I'm sure there's a few Premier League ones as well knocking around on Sunday. But that's well, Cambridge versus Peterborough. I'm not putting that in the same class or anything, but we've got Blackpool versus Leyton Orient. Both teams are kind of like heading towards that mid-table 12th slot, aren't they, at the minute? Charlton versus Wigan. Will Wigan get the new manager bounce? They've gone for Ryan Lowe, and I mean, but a lot of people wanted us to get Ryan Lowe, and he's gone to Wigan, which is interesting. He's gone from Preston to Wigan. I mean, club-wise, it's quite similar, I guess, but stature-wise, it's a bit of a drop down, especially with Wigan's low budgets at the minute. But Charlton, I think, will continue their little streak and beat Wigan. That's going to be very interesting as well to see if Wigan can get something. Town versus Crawley, obviously. Lincoln versus Bristol Rovers, which we're not that bothered about. Mansfield versus Barnsley. Barnsley just sacked Darryl Clark. I wonder if they'll make a play for Michael Duff. I don't think he'll go, but it'd be interesting. Northampton versus Birmingham. You expect Birmingham to just continue wiping everyone, just pushing everyone to the side. Reading Stevenage. Reading won a game midweek and they're not out of it yet. I've got no idea how they're still, after all that's happened to them this season, I've got no idea how Reading are where they are, in all honesty. I think it's that midfield, mate. The midfield's just, just works, doesn't it? Wing, Nibs, and Savage. I think it just seems to work really well for them. Rotherham versus Exeter. Not a lot going on there. Shrewsbury, Bolton, which is interesting if you're looking at the bottom. And then the big one, Wycombe versus Wrexham. And Wrexham's away form is usually not too bad, but they lost, didn't they, last time out 2-0. And Wycombe are kind of not quite as good. I mean, if someone hadn't got 50,000 injuries and started playing like absolute morons, I think second place would be really, really interesting. But these two are really going for it, level on points. I think that might be a draw, you know. I think that it may open the door for someone like Charlton. I think Charlton have just kind of come from nowhere recently. And you've got Nathan Jones talking about he's not letting them go to Costa or take the wives shopping and stuff, which that's a good get out for them, isn't it? But but it's interesting how he's all of a sudden he's really on point, isn't he, Nathan Jones? And he's getting a bit keen, but I think he might go a little bit too far potentially with that. But if you look at the table, you got Birmingham are miles ahead on 82, and then it's 68 points Wycombe, 68 Wrexham. If they draw to take them to 69, Charlton could potentially go within a win of them, which would be interesting because I don't particularly rate Charlton that much either. Stockport could be there as well if they could beat Bolton. Bolton is 6th. They could overtake Stockport into 5th if they win. And then there's us on 58 points with Reading also on 58 points in 7th and 8th. And we both need to win to get back into that top 6 and hope that something opens up above us. So it's interesting, isn't it? And there's lots to go before the end of the season, mate.
This is the weekend, Matt. This is the weekend we've got to catch up. This is a gift to us at this point, isn't it? With Bolton playing Stockport, Wycombe playing Wrexham. Okay, it's a little bit far afield. Wigan going to Charlton, like you say, new manager, tricky one there for Charlton. For us to win this weekend, when on paper we've got the easiest fixture, it's a must-do. I think it's a gift. It's a charity to us to give us this opportunity. I think because people will drop points. They will drop points above us, but it's another great week for League One, isn't it? Like you say, we're Burton versus Shrewsbury at the bottom of the table is a proper ding-dong affair there, and Cambridge against Peterborough as well. And all the way through the fixtures this weekend, bar us and bar the Birmingham Northampton game, everyone else is really well matched, and it'd be a tough one to pick a winner for the 12 games if you had to go through everyone and expect to get most of them right. It's a tricky run of fixtures to pick this weekend, but I can't wait to see Wrexham Wycombe. I'll watch that back after if I get a chance to do so, because they're two teams, Matt, that play in a way that they want to play. They know their identity. They know exactly what they're about. They know how to win games in their own way, and it'll be really interesting to see. I just hope Wycombe can do it, because my dislike for Wrexham's growing. Nathan Jones' dislike is there after his antics on the touchline at our stadium earlier in the season. Wrexham fans are just struggle, Matt. I struggle with them, and the more I watch them, the more I struggle. So if Wycombe can just get it done, it'd be great. But Wycombe obviously have a game in hand as well to play. So I think a draw there is probably a good way to go for Wycombe, because it gives them another chance when they have their extra game to put a little bit of a gap between them, as long as they don't lose this weekend. But that's a cracker, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's all we've got time for this week as well, mate. So thank you very much, Killer, for joining us again. Thank you for listening, and remember, sign up for the Patreon, and hopefully a win for Town this weekend. Up the Town.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.